because that's where the spiritual stuff is. Our consciousness is spiritual. It's connected to God, and it's charged in a way, and it has the power in such a way that you would expect something to if it's connected to God. And it's amazing how everything in our culture gets us to think that that's all crazy and quackery, and that all the university professors get out there and say, no, none of that stuff exists, there's no soul. All I need to do is look inside my consciousness, and I can ultimately, if I dig a little bit, I can get to an incredibly powerful experience, which I just call the soul. So I can have firsthand evidence for myself that it exists, but yet the university professors want to make sure I don't, in general, want to make sure I don't go and look that way, or tell the students that all that stuff is just non-scientific mumbo-jumbo. So we're tricked into not doing that, and then we go and on our science careers invent nuclear weapons and all these crazy vaccines and everything. So it's, this is the best message I think you're giving today.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Dr. Grupp, if you could talk a little bit about the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, because this is an area of special interest for Project Camelot viewers. We've been interviewing people in this regard, and it would be very interesting to hear your take on all of that.
Yeah, I think this is one of the ultimate issues. I made a film called The Illuminati Are the Nephilim, which if anybody wants to buy it, it's available on Amazon.com here in the United States, or at my website, Antimatter Radio. And it's basically just a 3.5-hour study, and how, if you really want to understand the world, we have to realize that it's not really the bankers and the big corporatists and whatnot that are our major problem. Yes, they're a big problem, but they're really just working for the real entities, so to speak, that control this world. And you can prove that the world is controlled by a very, very evil, dark, non-human source behind it all. And everybody, when they get into all this conspiracy theory or whatever you want to call it, instantly people, when they get into it, are so surprised of the sophistication of these secret governments, the ultimate secret government that exists behind everything, tormenting people and creating false flag terror events and delighting off of war. And the whole world is just this incredible, destructive playground for somebody or something behind the scenes. The Freemasons wrote about how there's, behind it all, there's a dark entity that they're afraid to even talk about. And so the point is, if you look deep enough, as I've done in my film, you can find out that, and you can prove, just empirically with, stuff you can see with your own eyes, that this world that we exist in is basically just a big prison, a big earth prison, as I call it, controlled by fallen angel, demon-like entities that are incredibly dark, and they delight off the things that the ordinary person finds absolutely horrific, such as war and destroying children in the Middle East and all these kinds of things. So we've been taught to think that, oh no, everything is just bricks and stones, and we have to have a materialistic perspective, and there's nothing spiritual or non-physical behind the scenes, and there's no alien presence behind the world controlling it and so forth. But the point of the universities in general, I taught in them for 10 years. The point of the universities is to make sure everybody doesn't know the real things that are going on. If you want to know exactly what's not going on, in general, the university is the best place to go, because they specifically show you the false reality. They want you to think that reality is just governed by chance, and the universe has no order to it, and all the political events are spontaneous, and the real government's just, in America here is Congress and the President and the Supreme Court, and there's nobody controlling them behind the scenes, and, the bankers don't have all this power, and so it's just an amazing world that we live in. And if you want to know the truth, just take the opposite perspective that you hear in the university system or the mass media. So, and that opposite perspective leads right to this ultimate evil power behind everything, which I just call the Nephilim or Anunnaki.
Okay, well, I think that might be a little bit general for some of the people that I've been interviewing, specifically Ashiana Dean. There's a lot more specificity, being more specific. She's a lot more specific about the various divisions within that group, and it becomes very complex. I don't know if you're aware of the work of on the writer of the book The Futants. He's someone we've had on our show before, and there's also the aspect which there's Anunnaki Syrians or Syrian Anunnaki. There are Anunnaki Nephilim. There are the Draco that are an Anunnaki strain and a hybrid race of the Draco. And then apparently, if you follow Sitchin at all, Zachariah Sitchin, it appears that there is a group of the Anunnaki that are human, and they look very much like us, the only difference being that they're much taller. So I appreciate where you're going with that, but I think that perhaps there might be some other levels to it.
Yeah, the point of my film is I'm very familiar with Ashayana Dean's work. I've been reading her book, The Voyagers, but the point of the film is to be much more general, just to show if people are looking for a proof that this is all going on, because a lot of times people will try to convey this to people, and people won't believe them, or they'll want to look for the real hard, say, empirical evidence that this is the way the world is really governed. So yeah, you're right. It's more of a general, just overview on how to, look at the world that we live in and find out that behind it is this dark power source. And then from that point, after that, somebody like Ashayana Dean would be able to help out and show all the divisions of it and how, the Elohim are just a subgroup of another group and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's vastly complex. I think that people are kind of at a disadvantage if they're just kind of starting out, but certainly they have to start somewhere. And so I have no problem with, generalizing with regard to this. I mean, if you read, the raw material, what they do in that particular, which is considered one of the best channeled information out there, at least in the past years, they talk about service to self versus service to others as being the most distinct, sort of largest distinction you can make between the two various groups.
Yeah, exactly. That's not an area that I would be an authority. I've read a lot about this, but I'm not really considered an authority behind this, I would say.
Sure.
I would leave that more to Dean, for example.
Dr. Waterman, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Okay, because I know you have a point of view here, and you also have some background here in this information, and maybe you could even cover a little bit of your bio for the purposes of Jeff Grupp, just so he knows who he's talking to a little bit.
Oh, okay. I'm a professor of pre-med and nursing anatomy, Jeff. I've worked in several areas, but my focus is European biological medicine, which is an alternative therapy to even the alternative healing in the United States. My focus had been quite a bit of quantum healing and applications of that, and actually using equipment and frequencies to determine imbalances, which is not in a physical way. I mean, we're talking about a whole other realm. I think as we move forward, and as I've always taught when I started each class, I'm saying we were in alchemy. There were some aspects of alchemy that we thought were, like changing metal to lead to gold. Really were misleading, but we've moved from alchemy, we're into chemistry, we've pushed chemistry as far as we can. Really, it wasn't the answer to the problem. It was just masking the source of the problem. And where everything is manifesting from, we're beginning to learn more and more from the aspect of quantum. And so I think that as we move that direction, and I'm talking science here, that we're soon going to come to this brink where spiritual, so to speak, meets science. And that's where scientists begin to have trouble. And I think that's why we've had such a long struggle getting to the point of understanding quantum physics, because actually we're moving into a truth that is not as physical as much as it is spiritual. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It does. When you say quantum healing, do you mean, can you explain to me what you mean? Is that quantum touch healing, or are you talking about sort of a technology that directly works at the quantum level? Working at the quantum level. Quantum, of course, oftentimes is misinterpreted, and by this I mean, very small, and not only is it a physical location and a physical type of size, it has a lot to do with moving into
the aspect of who